Well, I'm super excited to have Ellie with us this week. Ellie is one of our just finished seventh graders, graduating seventh grade. And so, Ellie, super excited to have you get to help us kind of finish out this series that we've been doing on the life of Joseph. But before we jump in, one thing I want everyone to get to tell us a little bit about themselves is tell us how long your family has been a part of Lex City, and then give us some fun random fact about you.
So my family has been at Lex City for, I think, 19 years, which was almost the whole time. And a random fun fact about myself that my small group already knows is I have 3 exotic animals called sugar gliders, and they are the cutest things. Since they're marsupials, they're native to Australia. This is our girl. She's the nicest one.
What are their names?
Rose, Randy, and Romeo. Do you know what flying squirrels are?
Yeah.
They're able to have that same ability of gliding between trees. And it's adorable. They have these wing-like things that span from their front to back paws called patagium. And they've been known to glide up to 100 feet if they start really high up.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. You are the only person I have ever met who had a sugar glider. So that is pretty awesome. That is unique. Well, I'm excited to have you get to continue on and really kind of finish this series we've been doing called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. We've been looking specifically in this series at how Joseph interacts with his family. And so we're going to skip kind of almost all the way to the end of the story again for tonight. Because when we left him last week, he just got sold by his own brothers into slavery. And so here we have his brothers coming to Egypt, not knowing that Joseph is even still alive, let alone the most powerful person. And they're going to have this awesome interaction as they come to Egypt and come face to face with this brother that they've sold. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And so Ellie, I'll let you kind of take it away and tell us a little bit about this story of Joseph and his brothers when they interact in Egypt.
So this part starts at Genesis chapter 42, verse 1, when the famine that Joseph had interpreted from the Pharaoh's dreams had gotten so bad that it was affecting Joseph's father, Jacob, and his 11 brothers. Jacob decided to send 10 out of his remaining 11 sons to Egypt to purchase food. Egypt had, because of Joseph, known about the famine in advance and had prepared. Jacob decided not to send his youngest son, Benjamin, to Egypt, as Benjamin was his new favorite son, since he thought Joseph was dead. Joseph had gained a lot of power for helping the Pharaoh with deciphering his dream. He was now second in command to the Pharaoh and was in charge of selling grain to the people. When the 10 brothers arrived, they unknowingly bowed to their lost sibling, just as was predicted years ago in one of Joseph's dreams. He recognized them immediately, but they didn't recognize him. Instead of having the 10 men who took him away from his life punished, he decided to test them to see if they were the same people they used to be. A chapter later, Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers, and they were speechless and scared. After all, Joseph could have hurt them so many times for their actions, but he didn't. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me here." Genesis chapter 45, verses 4 and 5. So Joseph forgave his brothers under extreme conditions, even though they didn't deserve it. It's like this phrase my dad constantly says to me and my sister: "Don't blank your sister even if she deserves it." For instance, don't punch your sister even if she deserves it. Don't slap your sister even if she deserves it. Don't bite your sister even if she deserves it. And my personal favorite, don't lick your sister even if she deserves it. I admire Joseph so much because he forgave his brothers even though they literally sold him into slavery. So even though tension will be high in your house during quarantine, choose to forgive.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for, you did a great job summarizing that story and explaining it. I like that. Don't blank your sibling even if they deserve it, or don't, whatever. It doesn't even, if you don't even have siblings, don't blank your parents or whatever. I think that's so true, right? Like if I was in Joseph's shoes, like the easiest thing to do would be like, oh, I'm just going to throw these dudes all in jail for like just one night, just so they know like what it felt like to be in prison like I was. Or, you know, like he didn't even do a single thing really to get back at them. Like you did a good point of like telling us like he tested them. He kind of put some tests on them to see like, hey, are they going to continue to lie like they always have, or have they changed? But never was he like trying to get back at them. And I think that was so good. I just can't imagine how hard it would be to forgive your brothers like after all this time. Why do you think, why is it so hard for us to sometimes forgive people? Like, why is it hard for us to forgive our siblings or forgive our friends when they make us mad? Why do you think it's so hard for us to do?
Because humans are by nature prideful. We think that we'll lose power if we forgive, or that we won't seem as intimidating, or we're just too stubborn to do it. Like with me and my sister, it's sometimes really hard to forgive because we're both super duper stubborn. I love her so much, but sometimes I just let my pride get in the way.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I think you're right. I love how you said like we don't like to give up power, so to speak. What are some really practical ways that we can forgive, or when we're in these moments of like you really want to lick your sister because I don't even know what you do to deserve that, but if you're going to punch your sister or whatever, like what do you do to make sure that you don't do that and instead you like really focus on forgiving?
Have a great relationship with God, for one thing, and everyone around you. It's so much easier to forgive if you have the wisdom from God. Choose to be selfless and not selfish, because we can forgive people so easily if we just let go of our pride. Also, do like random acts of kindness around your house, like that would not leave any room to fight about, like whose dish is on the couch. Just pick it up, even if it's not yours. Actually, the brain, there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's in the front of your brain, and it is not developed until you're 25. It's the rational decision part of your brain, but the emotional part of your brain, which I don't remember the name to it, it is fully developed from birth. So we more rely on the more developed part of your brain to make decisions, when that's not what we should do.
That's super good. I think that's really practical and really helpful. I'm also 25 and I still don't think that my fully brain has developed to where I think logically. So it takes some time, but you're right. I think that's so true. A lot of times, like we just respond first emotionally instead of like really just thinking through of like, okay, what was a better way that I could respond? I think that was good. And I loved your advice on just random acts of kindness, or just trying to think about others all day long, not just when you need to forgive, right? Because like if you're just thinking about others when it's time to forgive, then you're probably creating a lot of issues where you like are having to forgive people. But you made a good point. If you just think about others all day long and you're just kind and you're trying to do stuff for people that maybe they don't even deserve, then you have less fights in general and less times you need to practice forgiveness. So it's kind of a good preemptive way to think about it. I like that for sure.
Right before quarantine started, I got really mad at one of my best friends at school. There was a teacher at one of the ones that was online, and it was talking about how you needed to be 100% grace and 100% truth. And she was acting more out of harsh truth. And I tend to lean more on grace. We both need to improve on that, but it just made me a little mad when she did. And I didn't really want to talk to her for like the first few weeks of quarantine. I hadn't forgiven her for doing that kind of stuff. But once I did, because I really missed her, it was just a relief. And we started planning like a social distancing get together immediately. And I'm really glad I did, since I can't live without my friends.
Forgiveness is so powerful. And so whether you need to work on like little tiny forgiveness of, forgiving those in your house for doing things that are driving you crazy, or you need to really think about this idea of forgiveness, and there's some big hurts that have happened to you or that you've done to others that you really need to process, like, how do I need to forgive that person, or how do I need to forgive myself? I think this quarantine is a great time. You have a lot of time just to think and reflect and pray about, like, how do you need to really think about forgiveness right now? And maybe who is someone you need to reach out and text or call that you haven't been able to resolve something maybe for a while. And so, Ellie, this was awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through this story and kind of finishing this series up for us. You did such a great job explaining to us just the importance of forgiveness and what Joseph did. And so give her some love in the chat right now, because Ellie, you did awesome. Thanks so much for being on this week.
Thanks.